Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very special episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
It's
It's
JD.
JD. It's always JD, and it's always Michelle, but we are not always recording on a Wednesday night.
Not
Uh,
always.
Not
Sometimes.
always.
I
Yeah,
mean,
we
it's
decided to
definitely.
forego. Oh, sorry. What
Oh,
was
I was
that?
just gonna say it's definitely not unheard of, but
Yeah, because we're a podcast.
yeah,
Unheard.
Oh God, please
Uh,
continue, Michelle. I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. We made it a
nope.
whole 30 seconds into the episode before I interrupted.
You know
Fabulous.
what? We have not recorded in like a week and a half, so we're just our vibes are out of sync, I think. But we'll get them back in sync. Um, Sinks are in bathrooms, and that bathrooms are a big part of the movie we're talking about. Good transition. Good job, me. Let's get the therapy portion out of the way, shall we?
Oh
Because
God. Okay.
I'm just saying, I had therapy today. I'm on my
Should we
third
should
week.
should we at least tell people what we're watching first?
No, they know. They either saw
Okay.
it in the title or they like us and they're just here to
Oh,
listen
yeah, I
to us.
suppose. I don't know why I get the feeling sometimes that people are listening to us right now, but they're definitely not. And thank
They could
God.
be.
Yes,
They
Michelle,
could
tell us
be.
all about your therapy.
Yeah, it's going really well. I don't think I've gotten to talk about it on the show at all yet because we haven't recorded in a while. But going well. I really like when I say something and then my therapist is so shocked that she just doesn't say anything for a while and then just makes a couple notes and goes, "Okay, we'll dig into that later." Love that. Absolutely love that. It just makes me feel very like, you know what? It's nice that I'm fucked up, but not as badly as I could be. And today I hopped on the call and it was a very anxiety heavy day. So I was like, this is the perfect day for therapy. And I don't know how I got to some of the topics I did, but I basically like, you can only imagine if you listen to this podcast, dear listener, I can go from one subject to another without like even thinking about it. Imagine what my therapy appointments will be like if she just lets me talk. And I'm just like, yeah, so anyway, so I think this is because of this thing that happened. And that's messed me up for 15 years. I can't believe she said that, but I still think of it anytime I buy myself anything of like how she was so judgmental of it and how it just made me feel really guilty for buying myself an iPod and like just going off. And at the end, she was like, have you thought about setting aside time to worry? And I was like, no, I just do it all the time. What do you mean? And she said that sometimes if you're fixated, you can just sit down and take some time and just be like, this is the time I will worry and think about the worst case scenario. And then I'll just let it go for the rest of the day. I was like, this is great. I'm going to pair it with journaling. I'm going to take the worst case scenario and I'm going to try to make stand-up comedy material out of it. This is great. You are a great therapist. I am going to take time to worry and I'm also going to take time to journal and maybe I'll get back into comedy. And she's like, oh, okay. So
That's
therapy's going really well.
I think if therapy is getting you back into stand-up comedy, something has gone terribly wrong.
I just
Michelle.
realized it's very funny to talk about how fucked up my life has been. And I like making her laugh. And I'm like, maybe I should just do this at open mics. It would be
I
less expensive, guaranteed.
I had a whole minute there where I was like, wait a minute, Michelle, didn't you already tell this story on the podcast? And then I remembered, no, you told it on that episode that we tried to record that completely fell apart in the middle of it because my dog decided to shit in the hallway and
Yep.
then other things went crazy. And so, yeah, now my therapy is that, well, first of all, Michelle, I do want to
Yeah.
say thank you for sharing. That was wonderful. That's very
Thank
brave of
you.
you.
Yes, my feelings are valid.
You know, I a while back I sold a vehicle. It was an old,
Oh,
roughed up
yep.
vehicle, and then I sold it, and the guys who bought it apparently they had some kind of a fire or some kind of other disaster, and the title was destroyed. And so I was trying to get a new title for the vehicle. I had scheduled an appointment at the DMV because you have to do that now. You can't just go to the DMV. Holy shit, God forbid. But I scheduled an appointment for September 24th, and I thought September 24th was today. And as you can tell from the calendar, Michelle, it is September 25th as we record this.
It
I
absolutely
completely
is.
missed that appointment, and so then I said, well, I wonder how quickly I can get an appointment somewhere else. And in Fargo, you gotta wait like a week at least. But as it turns out, in Grand Forks, I could get in right away today. So I decided I was going to go to Grand Forks, get a new copy of the title, come back, and get all this business done. Then I was going to go have band practice. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, about 2 miles, not even 2 miles, like I don't even know how far. It was close enough that I could see the exit. We got a flat tire. And I didn't have a spare tire because the spare tire was still in my garage because I just had another flat tire like a week ago or however long. It was probably like a month ago. I don't know. Time is crazy. But then I had to spend like $300 that I didn't have that I had to borrow from people. And it's awesome because like you realize very quickly that when you're in a shitty position, there's a lot of people who are willing to help you. But god damn it, I didn't even get the title that I went up there for, Michelle. Now I gotta schedule an appointment in Fargo again anyway. This whole goddamn thing could have been avoided if I just knew what fucking day of the month it was.
JD,
What?
have you considered setting aside time to worry?
Michelle, I just worry all the time. What are you talking about?
I know that's what I thought, but apparently you can just build it into your schedule.
This is the thing that, and I know it's gonna sound glib, but I mean it. It's 100%. Anytime I've been in therapy, and they've said something like that to me, it's like, have you ever considered like setting aside specific time to worry, and then when that time is done, just going about your day and letting it go? And I want to say every time, yeah, I've considered it, but fucking how? Right?
It's like meditating. You
Like,
have
how
to
do I...
put your mind on the one thing. That's why I'm excited to do it.
No, that part I get. The part that I don't get is how am I supposed to stop fixating on it?
Because then you go to your other mindful activity and you do that one thing and you don't think about other things.
That's not possible for me.
I know. I know.
That's the point
Have
I'm
you
making. How am I
considered-
supposed to not think about something?
But have you considered
No.
medication?
Oh, yes. I
Yeah,
take
medication
several
will help.
medications. I'm probably going to
Well-
get some adjusted. And in fact, I just found out recently that the clinic where I see my psychiatrist has just partnered up with an organization that offers ketamine therapy. And my depression might be about to get its ass kicked. And I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, the movie we're talking about today
Excuse me.
also has a very specific medical treatment regimen, doesn't it?
It is
That's how
also
we can
about
circle
depression
back.
getting its ass kicked
It
for a little while anyway.
absolutely is. Yeah, I feel like we can move on from the therapy appointment. I set aside my time to worry for 8 minutes. Now I'm ready to get into some ooey gooiness. Are you, JD?
Yeah, but I'm definitely not going to not worry while I'm doing it.
Oh, that's unfortunate. I will worry about you worrying and then spiraling and then I'll spiral and then this thing will go to shit. But it's our
So what you're
podcast and it
saying
usually
is-
does.
But what you're saying is ultimately that this podcast is possibly going to be the reason that your therapy doesn't completely work.
I hope so. I
Oh,
like having
sweet.
a goal to work towards, so I don't want to
I
achieve
thought-
the goal really
I-
quickly.
I thought for a
So-
minute you were going to be like, yes, and that's bad. But you're like, yes, and that's exactly how I want it. I don't want to be fixed.
Yeah, keep me down for a while. I need to have something to work towards. I can't just achieve it really quickly and be like, wow, I guess I was really good at therapy again.
I was really good at therapy. Oh,
I eventually graduated therapy last time.
you
And then
graduate
starting
with
this
honors?
one, we don't have to get into it, but I understand what's wrong with me. I just need help processing it sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know this is because of this. I know. We can skip that discussion. I know that.
I get to have a big adventure next week. Mom and I are going to talk to somebody as a unit, just about some of the stresses that were, sort of like a family situation. It's gonna be real anxious and weird, but it should be hopefully helpful. It's so
Yeah.
weird. I'm so like I don't know why I'm still so dubious of these things that have clearly benefited me significantly in the past. There's still this part of me in the back of my head that's just like, do you really need to pay somebody to talk about your problems? And the answer, of course, is yes, because it's not just talking about your problems. Go to therapy, take your medication. Let's talk about this movie, Michelle.
Will do. And I will get
I
into
know
it,
you
but I
got a
might
lot
take
to
this
say.
I might take this medication as well. We can talk about it. So, The Substance, a 2024 release. I went to see it Monday night by myself. I'd never seen a movie by myself. That's why, JD, you did not get an invite. I felt very brave. I packed my mace. I was ready. I walked through the parking lot with my hand in my purse, and I was prepared to use it and was a little excited to use it. If somebody had approached me and been like, ma'am, you left your car lights on, they might have gotten a face full of mace. Because I was like, I haven't gotten to use this and I'm paranoid. I'm going to spray you. I'm like a skunk. I'm startled. But I went at 9 o'clock and I saw it by myself, except when I booked my ticket, I was the only person there. And how dare three other people show up? There was a guy behind me who was also master dating. And good
Wait,
job to
what?
him. Master dating? You've never heard of
Oh,
that?
dating. Oh, I was fidgeting with my volume control for just a minute, and I didn't
Master.
quite hear exact. Oh, okay, yeah, master dating. Yeah, yeah. I was
Master
like,
dating.
Jesus, you said that so casually, and how is
Yeah.
this the first I'm hearing of it?
Lots of butts in this movie. Lots,
So
lots
many
to master
butts.
date about. And yeah, then there were two other ladies, and then immediately afterwards, I did a Facebook Live because John Humphreys. Hey John, I'll send you a pen. By the way, I forgot to respond to your post, but if you want some squelching pens, you've earned them. I got you on. I was gonna say I've got you on my to-do list, but that's not what I meant. So you'll get some squelching pens, but did a Facebook Live just because I was trying to process, then realized like 10 seconds into the Facebook Live that I could not say anything about this movie that I wanted to say and still remain spoiler free. So here's our episode. And then JD went to see it
Yeah,
last
that's
night.
yeah, Michelle was like, "Oh, I need somebody to see this so I can talk about it." And she did that a while back with this movie called Femme that's on Hulu that I promised I would see and I still haven't goddamn seen, and I'm sorry, Michelle.
That's okay. I'm
But
used to it.
but I did say, "All right, hot damn it, let's go see what this movie The Substance is all about. Let's go see because if you did see Michelle's little Facebook Live video, I believe you did say in that video, Michelle, did you not, that this is one of your favorite films of the year so far?
Yep. And the more I think about it, it might be in the number one spot, but I do need to marinate. And I
Michelle,
mean that
oh sure,
I don't
marinate.
know yet.
Are you marinating in Margaret Qualley?
Oh, I would love to. Here's the thing. Before we get into the movie, Margaret Qualley, I fell in love with her during Death Stranding. You guys, I will defend Death Stranding until I die. I stand by it. Death Stranding is one of my favorite games. It came out during COVID. It was a game about isolation and people not being able to physically connect with one another. It really spoke to me. It had an impact on that time in my life. Margaret Qualley is in that game and she looks like herself and has her voice and everything. So I went, who is this lady? And I went, I adore this lady. And then I saw Maid, which is, I believe, her 8-episode Netflix miniseries, which broke my heart. She is fantastic in it. I realized that she had been the crazy girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I have just slowly been building up this love of Margaret Qualley. I had no idea who she was like 5 years ago, and now I'm like, Margaret Qualley, all day, day.
Word.
Word.
I was like, I think she looks familiar, and then I looked at her credits, and I'm pretty sure I've never seen anything else she's been in. Uh,
Oh, I
so
adore her.
so yeah, we're the substance. Um, it was it the writing award that it won at Cannes?
Best screenplay.
Best screenplay at the Cannes Film Festival.
Yes.
Well, okay, before we get into anything further, Michelle, did you by chance take a look for a solid Descrippy script on this one?
I did. I did. We can go ahead and use the IMDb one because just like the trailer, it will tell you enough, but definitely will not
Yeah,
even get started on what
yeah,
this movie
taking a look
does.
at it here, and it looks real good. So do you want to do it, or should I do it?
I'll go ahead and read the descripty script.
Tell them,
So
Michelle. Well,
a
no,
fading.
Michelle, here's what I
Oh
think.
no!
I
Oh
think
no!
I should do, because the way we usually do
Yeah.
this is one of us does a descriptive script, and then when we're done, we say, hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts. We've already started
Ooh.
talking about yours a little bit, but
Okay.
nobody knows, and you don't know, what my thoughts on this movie are.
True.
So we'll
True.
do it like a big surprise. So,
Okay. Yeah.
The Substance, 2024. A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. The Substance. Rated R. 2 hours, 21 minutes. Michelle,
Yeah.
we've discussed Margaret Qualley a little bit.
A little bit.
And we know that you really enjoyed this movie. Would you like to tell us, in a spoiler-free way, kind of a summary of your thoughts on this film, The Substance?
For sure. I definitely will. Also, one more Margaret Qualley shout out. Sanctuary. Goddamn. If you have any sort of attraction to Margaret Qualley, go watch Sanctuary. Do I see JD typing? He's like,
No.
yes. No, I know. The joke. Anyway, my thoughts on The Substance. This, oh man, it hit a nerve in kind of like a good way because what this movie is all about is how women are going to age in a way that society will no longer care about them because our value is tied to our looks. I have been obsessed lately with how my hands feel older and how they don't look like the young youthful hands that I remember. I'm only 35, but I'm hyper aware of it. It's a thing I'm fixating on. I'll talk about to my actual therapist. But so even though like I am not to the point of like being actually what people might physically consider like an old woman, I feel like that and I have really really fixated on it. So then watching this thing where I'm like, first off, for the first like 10 minutes of this movie, I was like, holy shit, I'm never gonna age as well as Courtney Cox. And that's because I have no idea what the fuck she looks like. This is a Demi Moore movie. I got the two mixed up. But then I'm like, oh my God, Demi Moore looks fantastic. She's beautiful. She's so great. And then finding out that even she does not think that she lives up to these standards that society has set for her and that she needs a younger Margaret Qualley version of herself. It's like, I'm never going to look like that at 50. There's no hope for me. So seeing that somebody as beautiful as her can still have this and then experience the upsides and downsides of like, maybe you don't actually want, maybe you were happier the way that you were. It just sent me on a really like kind of cathartic spiral. I have heard it's not going to be like anybody who's seen the movie is not going to be surprised by this, that the last half hour is divisive. For me, it really solidified my love of it because they were like, we know, lady in your mid 30s, that you are feeling some type of way about this. Don't worry. We're just going to go all out so that you can leave in a good mood. We're not going to give you this really like, we'll say somber, like there's so many sad ways this could end. We're not going to give you one of those because we know you've already been kind of in your feelings for 2 hours. That's why all the candy that you bought to eat alone is gone. That's why your nachos were devoured immediately. I felt so sick after this movie for many reasons. And part of it was because I stress ate throughout I intended on taking some sweet ropes home and having them the next day with my lunch. No, all 10 pieces, they were gone. This movie made me stress eat, but it spoke to me. I enjoyed that it was also still a dark comedy, though. I did laugh at significant portions. There is some strong color symbolism going on in here. I cannot wait to get this on like a Blu-ray and listen to the commentary about why certain choices were made. Like it's great. There's a lot of unique camera work done in this too. A lot of like fisheye lens and like heavy sound effects that don't need to be as loud as they are, that just also throw you off. I fucking love this movie and it might be my number one of the year. Check back in with me in December, but The Substance, 5 skulls, easy.
5 skulls for The Substance from Michelle. I think any of us who saw her Facebook Live definitely saw that coming when she said this is easily top five, possibly best film or favorite film of the year.
Yep.
5 skulls. Michelle, do you wanna know my spoiler-free thoughts about The Substance?
Yes, I am predicting a 3. That's my prediction.
Okay.
I'm just putting it out there because you said it was very French, and I know how
Are
you
you
feel about French
are
films.
you are you predicting a 3 just to hedge your bets and be like right down the middle and be like, then is that what this
No,
is? Okay.
I think like it being so French is why it's not going to be a 5 for you. You're going to be like
Yeah.
it's very French.
Let's get into let's
Titan or
yeah.
Titan, however it's yeah.
I think it's Titan. I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure. I don't care. Okay. First of all, I want to. You were talking about Demi Moore and how even she has those hang-ups about her body image and all of that stress and stuff. And you said like something about being 50 years old. Michelle, how old do you think Demi Moore is?
I don't know, but her character was 50 in this movie.
Demi Moore, the actress, is 61 years old.
Wow.
Think about
61
that.
years
A,
young. Are
a,
you kidding
a
me?
61-year-old woman who still looks like that,
And it's
still
still not
is
good enough.
poisoned by that culture. Okay, so let's get
I
into it.
love that casting choice. I just have to
Yeah.
say, like, she was already like such a beautiful woman, and then finding out
Mhm.
that they're like, you're gonna play a younger woman, which does not really happen in Hollywood. Like, they're not gonna cast an older woman to play a younger part.
Right.
They're like, you're gonna do that, and it's still not gonna be enough. So
Well, I mean,
holy shit, beautiful.
it's no irony that this is a quote unquote comeback film or
Yep.
whatever for Demi Moore because what happens in this film is more or less exactly what happened to her in her career, right? Like this is
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a very personal project for her. Anyway, let me get into my spoiler-free thoughts on The Substance because yes, this movie is very French. Like I said in my Facebook Live, like if I hadn't known going in that this was a French film, I would have known this is a French film. I can't even exactly explain why. There is just an energy, just a feeling in a French film. Also, this movie is 2 hours and 21 minutes long. Uh, and I don't care. This is a fantastic film. This movie has so many things to say. It is cinematically beautiful. It has so many incredible like major names, cinematic influences. Like it's there's so much Cronenberg and Kubrick, and there's some Brian De Palma in here, especially in the climax of the film. We'll talk about that as we move into the spoiler section. Some of those hallway shots that just reek of Kubrick, but also this movie is completely unafraid to tell you that while it was being influenced by those great respected critical auteurs, it was also being influenced by things like Reanimator and From Beyond and Society and things like that. And I love that you talk about the last half hour. I love the last half hour because that's the kind of stuff that for the longest time movies like this just refused to do because it was seen as so ridiculous. And I think they had a lot to say. The director's name I don't have it right in front of me. Uh,
Coralie,
Corley,
Coralie
Farjat, I believe.
Farjat.
Uh, Clearly had a ton of things to say. I thought said them incredibly well. The main cast in this, Margaret Qualley, Demi Moore, and obviously this is a film about women, but we have to say something about Dennis Quaid, who was
Yes.
incredible in this film.
He played
Uh,
such a good sleazy guy.
yeah, this is it's gonna make my top 10 list for sure. It will probably be my top five for the year. There are a couple of little things about it that I think make it a little bit less effective for me than for you. But they're the kind of things that are just little tiny nuances of stuff that don't affect it for me at all. This is also a five skull movie for me. This is fantastic.
Oh, thank God.
No,
See,
it's
I
really
predicted
good.
a
It's
3,
really
but
good.
I hoped for a 5 because I did message you and said, you have to go see this movie because if you don't like this movie, I do not understand your movie
Yeah.
taste. Because I knew there were certain things that we'll get into where I was like, even if JD does not like the rest of this movie, he's got to see this.
No, this movie is even at 2 hours and 21 minutes.
It didn't feel
I'm
that long.
I'm not
It
gonna
really
lie.
didn't.
I do feel like this could have been 2 hours. We could have trimmed about 15 to 20 off of it, but I just don't care. Because I definitely think like this movie is a movie that said I got some shit to say, and I'm gonna say it. And
Mm-hmm.
it took the pace it wanted to take, and it was yeah, this was really good. I look forward to seeing it again.
Sweet.
All
Well,
right,
should we get
so
into
that's spoiler
spoiler,
freeze on the substance.
yeah, spoil heavy?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's this is gonna be real fun, Michelle, because as
Oh, fuck.
you may be aware, I love this. I love this. We've been doing this every episode for like over a year now. It was your idea in the first place to start doing this, and it
Yeah.
still takes you by surprise every
I get so
time.
fixated on giving a good review that I
Oh, sure.
forget what I have to do afterwards. What
Oh.
do I have to do now, JD?
Well, for those of you who may be tuning in for the very first time, first of all, thank you. I totally forgot to welcome you at the beginning of the episode. That's my bad.
I
But
didn't. Fuck off. We don't need you. I'm kidding. Thank you so much for staying for our therapy portion.
no, seriously, fuck off. Anyway, no, what we do here now is apparently we found out that there are some people who listen to our show who sometimes don't watch the movies. They apparently just want to listen to us babble about the movies. And so what Michelle does now is she goes through and gives a summary of the plot of the film, but it's just all impromptu off the top of her head. She has no notes in front of her, nothing at all. She's just gonna, from memory, do her best to tell you. This is the spoiler section now. Let's be clear.
Yep.
She's about to tell you all the shit. So if you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to know all the shit, stop now and come back later. Michelle,
Yeah.
you have the floor.
Thank you, kind sir. I can say that this will actually be a second time I do this because not on the show or anything. I didn't cheat. I haven't rehearsed. It's still going to be impromptu and it's still going to be different. But my husband made the mistake of coming home for lunch the night after I saw The Substance, and he was asleep when I got home from seeing The Substance by myself. So when he came home for lunch, that was my first time being able to really talk to him about it. And I went, I just want to tell you about this movie. And I took like a half hour. I told him in detail every single thing, and he was like, I thought you were just gonna sum it up. I was like, I'm sorry, I have to tell you. And then this happens, and like I unloaded for his entire lunch break. And he was like, okay, I have to go back to work now. And I got to the very ooey gooey part of this movie in my summary and said, but I'm not telling you anything about that. That's why you have to watch the movie with me. So I was like, I can't even describe that part, and I'm probably not going to today. Okay. So there's a lady played by Demi Moore. She is turning 50. She's real sad about it because she's like, oh no, my youth, and I'm no longer valued as a lady. As though she wasn't used to that. I mean, come on, you're 50. You stopped being valued at 25. How have you not had time to, oh God, I'm projecting my own feelings. But she's 50, and she basically finds out about this thing called the substance. And they're like, hey, do you want a younger, sexier, Margaret Qualley version of yourself? We can make that happen with this mysterious drug that you're going to go to a dark alleyway alone and go into a dingy room and then find yourself in a really stark white room. And there's going to be some drugs and you should put those in your system. Trust us. It's a good idea. And Demi Moore, aka Elizabeth Sparkle, was like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Anything's better than being 50. So she goes, she picks up the drug. It's all very medical and it's all the cards say like, take this first, do this, and there are some rules, and that is you inject yourself once and dispose of the drug. Then you there are some IV bags for keeping your matrix, is called the main person, and your other is the other person, keeping them alive for a week, because every week you have to switch. No exceptions, and you also have to stabilize every day. And what does that mean? We'll get into it. I will say that given those instructions, the way that Elizabeth Sparkle and her counterpart Sue realize what they have to do with these medical instruments is amazing, because there's no instruction saying you have to use this tourniquet and inject this directly into your vein. I would have just like shot myself in the arm like a normal. Would that have been acceptable? Would it have still worked? Probably not, because otherwise they wouldn't have included the tourniquet. Later on, when Margaret Qualley is like, Sue is like, oh, I have to inject this into her spinal column and withdraw the spinal fluid. How the fuck did you make that connection? I never would have thought of that. Like, that's almost impressive that you have such good medical training. Have you watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy? Did you grow up watching ER every Thursday like I did, and that's how you're qualified to do essentially a spinal tap? Got a lot of questions there. But Elizabeth Sparkle, she injects herself, and then she's like, well, that didn't work, but it did, because she falls and bashes her face on the bathroom floor, and then stuff starts happening under her skin, and she's clearly feeling it all, and then her spine rips open, and another person emerges, and hey, it's Sue, which I want to know why that name was chosen, because this is the younger, sexier version of her, and Sue is not a name that screams, like, I would expect like her to be like, I'm Carmen, like something like that. And I do want to know why Sue, but there's also like a Peggy Sue or Mary Sue or whatever, that narrative structure maybe has something to do with that. I do have questions. Why Sue? Because they put a lot of emphasis on Sue. The first time she says it, it's just her mouth repeating it over and over and over again. Why Sue? Sue emerges and she's like, holy shit, I'm hot now. Have you seen my butt? Yes, we have. And we're about to see it a whole lot. I gotta say, like, the two actresses, Demi and Margaret, there are some, I know that they're trying to emphasize the difference between these two bodies by showing us like how young and toned Sue is, but like Demi Moore also looks fantastic. So they have to then really amp up Margaret Qualley's appearance to be like, yeah, we know you think she's fantastic, but have you seen this? And they go all out, and like, just God bless you, ladies. Thank you so much. You both are fantastic, and this movie's great, and I adore you both. So Margaret Qualley, aka Sue, emerges, and then she goes, she gives Elizabeth Sparkle the Matrix, the IV bag full of fluids, and then leaves her there for a week naked on the bathroom floor. Just like me after a long night of drinking. Am I right? Please just give me an IV bag and leave me here until I need to take over control of myself. So Sue goes, she gets Elizabeth Sparkle's old job. She's young, she's vivacious, she's having fun. She comes back, she switches with Elizabeth Sparkle, and then now Elizabeth is the main character once more. And here's why she should have asked some questions, because she seems to like be okay with this, but I would be pissed and asking for my money back. Even though she is a younger, sexier version of herself, it doesn't seem she has the memories of being a young, sexier version of herself, because these two, when they switch off and on, they are surprised by things that have happened. And they're like, how could you trash the apartment with alcohol? How could you trash the apartment with chicken? You know, like they are very surprised. So it's like, what is Elizabeth Sparkle actually get out of this? But then it's kind of revealed, like, she just wants to put a better version of herself out there. And, like, fine, but I would be so pissed if I was like, I just have to take long naps and I wake up and I'm still just me. Like, what's the fucking point? I could just sadly watch the TV on my week off, like, no matter what. It doesn't make a difference. So I have some questions about that, but I look past it because I guess that's just fine. Some stuff goes on, blah, 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 blah. Sue decides that she likes being Sue and she's going to be Sue a little bit longer. So she takes a little bit more of Elizabeth Sparkle's spinal fluid to stabilize herself. And keeps the body a little longer than a week. Elizabeth Sparkle now has taken over again, and she realizes she has one really old finger, just a single one, not like a hand in my case that seems to be wrinklier than she recalls. No, just one really old, witchy, haggy finger that, like, if it offered Snow White an apple, it would make a lot of sense. It's that kind of finger. And she calls the complaints department, and the guy, he doesn't care. He doesn't get paid enough to deal with this. And he's like, what has been taken cannot be untaken, or whatever the fuck it is. And it turns out that anytime Sue decides to keep the body a little bit longer, this is just going to happen to Elizabeth, and she's got to fucking deal with it. But she does need to remember that they are one. They are not two separate people. There is no she. There's only the one. So there's some stuff that happens, causes conflicts, blah, 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 blah. Sue starts taking the body and does not give the body back. And then after a while, she goes to stabilize, withdraws some spinal fluid from Elizabeth Sparkle, and it is gross. I mean, spinal fluid, already pretty gross, but this is even grosser spinal fluid, if you can imagine. So she calls the complaint line, and the dude's like, ladies, you got to work this out. But in order to fix your problem, you just need to switch back. And she's like, oh God, because that means now a very, 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 very old Elizabeth Sparkle has to be in control for a while. And God, she's mad. She's really mad in the most appropriate kind of way. Because she's like, maybe I should have just stayed the way I was, but no, I want to terminate. I'm going to trot my way down to this scary alley. I'm going to get the termination medication. She comes back to terminate Sue and then changes her mind midway through because something like she's the best part of her, Sue is, so she doesn't want to kill her. And then she tries to wake her up by giving her some blood transfusion in the way that's how they switch. And then now they're both awake. Now Sue's pissed because how dare Elizabeth try to kill her? A fight ensues, and Sue, I did there, didn't mean to. And then Sue kills Elizabeth Sparkle and then goes to host her New Year's Eve show, where it turns out she's now falling apart because she killed herself. And her teeth, she's ripping them out in a bathroom. I had a hard time with that. An ear falls off. A fingernail comes off. Like, she's falling apart. And she gets this great idea. Margaret Qualley, gorgeous Margaret Qualley, best part of Death Stranding, I am going to go get an even better version of myself, which, God, a better version of Margaret Qualley? Is it even possible? I was so excited. I was sitting there and like, yes, please give me a better version of Margaret Qualley. What does this golden being look like? Will I become crazy when I feast my eyes upon them? Because there's no way I can even fathom a more beautiful person than Margaret Qualley. And then what emerges? She decides to use the vial of stuff that was supposed to be disposed after one opening, and oh man, if you have been severely wanting some intense body horror, this filled like the 20 years of body horror that we've been missing, 30 years, like ever since Society, we have not seen something. We're like The Thing. Like, we have not seen this amalgamation of body parts. This is very much like Color Out of Space alpaca scene of just like, what the fuck? The mom, okay, we won't spoil Color Out of Space, but like, if you want some ooey gooiness, this delivers. And then it's like, this thing is named Eliza Sue, and now it has glued Elizabeth Sparkle's picture to its own face. It put on Sue's gown for the New Year's Eve show. Demi Moore is stuck on its back in a perpetual scream that is horrifying. It's gonna go host the New Year's Eve show. I should maybe say her, because I'm assuming if Sue and Elizabeth were women, Eliza Sue. So I guess she goes to host the New Year's Eve show. And it does not go well. People realize there are some weird things. This does not look like the Sue. Sue, have you, I mean this politely, have you put on a little weight? Have you maybe grown some arms? Also, you do have one tit out. I don't know if you know that, but it is out, and this is live TV, so we do need you to tuck that back in. Everybody freaks out. The lady freaks out. She just wanted to host the New Year's Eve show. Everybody in the audience is panicking. Somebody, if I recall, somebody like tries to like chop off an arm or something of the creature. And the woman, dear God, see, even I, if she's not up to my beauty standards, even I cannot recognize Eliza Sue as a beautiful woman. She seemed like she had a great personality, at least. But so she just starts spraying blood everywhere, and she goes running from the theater. It's a whole ooey-gooey-ness, and then she falls onto the pavement and breaks into a million pieces. And you think, Elizabeth Sue and Eliza Sue are all now free from this situation they've put themselves in. But not quite yet, because now Demi Moore's face that has been plastered on the back of Eliza Sue and stuck in a perpetual scream, unable to close her mouth, now has become what I can only describe as a flesh starfish, a starflesh. And she is now just shimmying her way over to her Hollywood star as just a face and not even quite tentacles, appendages. And she just goes over and she goes to her star on the Hollywood Boulevard as just a face. And then she has her final rest. And then she becomes a bunch of liquid that is then swept up, and all that remains is this cracked star that was once Elizabeth Sparkle. The substance.
The substance. Michelle, do you realize that you just gave like I'm not 100% sure exactly, but like a 12-minute summary of that film?
That's the problem, is I start talking about it, and then there's
No,
so
that's
much. I didn't even like, I know,
that's not
imagine
a
what my husband went through when he like just, I monologued at him for his entire lunch break, and then I didn't even get, there's so
no,
much.
that's not a
Oh,
problem. I think it is just indicative of how much is going on in
oh,
this movie. Like there's so many layers. Something I want to touch on right away because you just mentioned it a moment ago, and I want to get to it before I forget. You were talking about how Monster Eliza Sue has one tit hanging out. I don't know if you noticed, but there were topless dancers all over that stage.
I know, but it's different. They're
Right,
conventionally attractive.
but what I'm saying is there's uh, like just little bits of things. Because what I want to also say is not only were there topless women all over that stage, there were also children in the audience.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a good example of just like a layer of like this is not just the A story in front of you. There are levels talking about how layered this element of our culture and especially our celebrity culture really is. I thought that was fantastic. I have to believe that the name Sue is a reference to the Mary Sue. It
Mary
has
Sue,
to
I could
be,
not remember. That's
right?
that's what I'm thinking too,
It's
where
I
we
mean
all want to be her.
it's the idealized character, right? It's this woman without flaws, inexplicably good at everything, which, side note, explains why she also just happens to know to pull the stuff out of Demi Moore's spine for the all of that. She just
Fair, she
happens
does have a
to
medical degree.
yeah, she does. She just happens to know how to turn a hollow wall into a secret chamber
I
with a
know.
hiding door that just builds flush with the wall. That's all deliberate. That's Mary Sue stuff,
See,
right?
I
So
thought it
that's
might be Mary Sue.
yeah.
If you're listener, if you're not familiar with Mary Sue, it is a narrative thing where basically it means that an author has written a character, a girl character, who is very neutral so that anybody can put themselves in that place and be like, oh, I want to be like Sue so badly. It's usually like
Yeah,
a romantic technique of like,
yeah, and
this
it's
woman
it's
could be
this,
anybody.
yeah, this elevated woman without flaws, right? She has
Mm-hmm.
just inexplicably great at everything, just wish fulfillment type stuff. And so I also feel though that the fact that her name is just Sue, it's one name and it's a very short name, just 3 letters, is in itself a comment on nobody gives a shit who this person is, or none of these people on the in the TV business or whatever. They don't. Not one of them at any point whatsoever asks her what her last name is. She just says, "My
Mm-hmm.
name is Sue," and that's it. Because at the end of the day, they don't really give a shit what her name is. They care how she looks and how they can monetize that, and how they can use and manipulate her appearance until she's at a point where they just throw her away and says she's useless. Now, there's this very on the nose moment at the end that I think you were mentioning it. I think I'm pretty sure it's when she's administering the termination drug. Like she just flat out no kind of fancy language, just straight up says, "You are the only lovable part of me." Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the literal line. Like it's so heavy and so well done. Such an incredible presentation of like even Elizabeth Demi Moore. Like there are moments here where this culture has also, frankly, like she's a very sympathetic character. She is our protagonist, and we feel for her and we understand what drove her to make these terrible decisions. But there are also moments where she's also uh, kind of a shit in an effort to make her like that dude from her 10th grade class. Now again, the idea that this dude from her, that she would remember this dude that she hasn't seen in forever, like he was a little weird. But there's that moment where like she calls him and sets up a date and then just completely just levels or just completely ghosts him on that thing. Obviously this is about like she can't bring herself to go, right? But there's also these troubled elements involved here, and the way she's poisoned against herself, and it's so layered that Demi Moore is fucking incredible in this movie, and it's I don't know. I have a lot of scattered thoughts that I haven't focused, and those are just a couple of things that I initially wanted to babble out about. You talk now for a little while.
Yeah. I am so excited to watch this again and dig into the color symbolism that is
Yes,
used, because there
yes.
is no way that a lot of the choices that were not made with intention. For example, you mentioned the hallways. When I think of hallways, I think of like a transition between one space to the other. And the fact that these hallways are abnormally long, I, I don't know how to put into words what I'm trying to say, but like the hallways are a big part of this, and this transition from one space to another, where Elizabeth is becoming Sue, then Sue is becoming Elizabeth. That all was very interesting. I want to go look at all the different times that they used that, and it also is used to emphasize, Elizabeth Sparkle's long career in this huge tunnel instead of a hallway, just very long. And then Sue shows up and immediately takes all that away, completely erases her legacy, and puts up 2 beautiful pictures of her own, or the staff do. Also, the bathroom is so striking as a black and white checkered bathroom, but black and white also represents duality. It's yin and yang. It is an opposite to one another. So just as Sue is kind of the opposite to Elizabeth Sparkle, there is that back and forth. Then she's just put into a very dark room, which is kind of what is happening to Elizabeth Sparkle as she gets put in this dark room and locked away where no one questions where she is. Nobody goes to check on her. Nobody even knows her address to go see like that Sue is now living there. She gets put into this dark room by herself, just because that's all people care about. They have Sue now. They don't need Elizabeth Sparkle to be out there and just like taking up space. Who cares if she takes up space? She's washed up. And then the yellow coat I have not figured out. It is very striking, and it the way that Elizabeth Sparkle seems like the type that would wear a very nice bright yellow trench coat and be very vivacious and vibrant and catch people's attention, but they keep using it throughout the entire movie. Even when Elizabeth leaves to go meet her high school classmate, which was very sad. She just could not get herself to leave because she kept thinking, I'm not as good as Sue. And I have had those nights.
Crushing.
I have canceled plans because I've been like, my makeup's all fucked up. What's the point? I'm not going anywhere. Like, none of this. Like, I have done that. I have absolutely done that, where you just get in your head of like, I am not good enough to be out in society. But even then, like, Elizabeth puts on the yellow trench coat, and yellow can mean a lot of things. It can mean like happiness and cheeriness, but it can also mean caution. It can mean excitement, but also worry. So the fact that these things are so very, very apparent means that these were deliberate choices, and I'm excited to go through with a pen and paper and write down the things that seem to be very important symbolisms. Part of it, just not Randy Quaid, that's the boys. Dennis Quaid, father of superstar Randy Quaid. You might not know Dennis Quaid, but you probably heard of his son, Dennis Quaid. The way that they show him, I mean, obviously he's like a gross guy, but they use like a fisheye lens where it exaggerates his features. When he's eating the shrimp, it is the loudest shrimp eating ever. They focus on his very yellow teeth, and they emphasize that this person who we feel disgusted by is the one saying Demi Moore is not good enough. And God, just I want to see, like, even the very beginning of that star, the creation of the star on the boulevard, and then how it's gone through the ages until people stopped caring, and then it cracked, and now it's just a dirty star people don't even glance at. I want to know who like put this out on like a storyboard and went, this is shot for shot how we're gonna make this thing, because it was written and directed by the same person. Coralie, I believe you said Farjat. Yes,
I think so. I think Farjat.
Probably. She wrote and directed, and this seems to be like her biggest thing she's done. She has had a couple other full-length things, but not anything that I recall getting a gigantic theatrical release like this. I've seen one of them, Revenge, and then she did an episode of The Sandman, and then a few other things that I'd never heard of. So you hear like a not brand new, but like a newer writer director, and you're like, oh God, like, are you gonna need some guidance? No. If this is her vision, she fucking nailed it. And the fact that it's just her name in both those spots, like, oh my God, she might be one of the greatest writers directors ever. I can't say that. I can't. I just love her right now. I hope her next thing is as good. That's what I will say, because holy shit, this is so meticulously planned. And I didn't even get into how upsetting the spine thing is. So upsetting. And the fact that Margaret Qualley has to stitch her back up, and now Demi Moore is like, for the rest of her life, she has this huge imperfection. And the night before she underwent this transformation, she made a point to wear a dress that completely showed her back, and she can never do that again because of her fear of, not living up to beauty standards is already bad enough. And now she has this huge, huge scar to show for it. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, the visual planning of this film is on another level. The framing of this is a movie where the director and the cinematographer obviously look. Some movies are basically just find where we can put the camera, and like the camera serves the scene, right? In the sense that we're just going to put the camera wherever it's going to be best to see what's going on. And this is a movie where I feel like, even if I don't know exactly why, like, there is a specific like reason or context for every frame, every movement of the camera. Every shot in this is just so deliberate. The color choices are so deliberate. A couple of things. You talked a lot about the yellow coat, which again, I really, really love. I don't know exactly if it's as simple as this, but keep in mind the very first thing you see in this film is a picture of an egg yolk separating into two egg yolks, and it's
Hmm.
bright yellow. And I'm wondering if it's just a reference to that idea of just embryonic, the embryonicness of it, or something. Maybe more to it. I don't know. You were talking about the way they shoot Dennis Quaid, and yes, one of the big, not only that fisheye lens, but he's always shot very close up. He is a man invading your space. No respect for personal boundaries at all. Just like right up, and so visually representing that idea of his character, I thought was really, really well done. Here's an interesting thing, even about the production, that I never would have thought of, but is so incredibly well done. Margaret Qualley's breasts in this film are not real. It's a
Oh,
prosthetics that she had to wear. Her natural breasts are not that large, and it's a prosthetic that she wore for all of those scenes. And I never would have guessed that in my life. Like, there's just so much level of work here. There's also, frankly, again, so much bravery on the part of both of these performers, because obviously you have Demi Moore allowing herself to be seen nude at the age of 61, although I think you and I would both say, at least from our perspective, she certainly has nothing to be afraid of. But you understand that whole thing. There's just the way and the places she's willing to go here, the emotional range, and again, because she's bringing herself to a place where she's probably using a lot of her personal experience and reliving a lot of that real pain and shittiness. But then also Margaret Qualley to come in and understand that, hey, this is a movie about the sexualization of women, and how that's the only value that our entertainment industry often sees in them. And the way we're going to tell that story, we need you to understand that we are going to turn you into that woman, right? Like the main reason you are here. She does get a couple of great acting moments, especially towards the end when everything starts to fall apart. But for the longest time, her entire job is just to smile and look pretty and be there, and she does it incredibly well. Just really fantastic performance here. Michelle, we have to talk about the butts. God damn it, there are
oh,
so many butts in this movie. This
and I
guys,
love all of them.
if you didn't watch either of our Facebook Live short reactions to this is fucking hilarious. Because I didn't watch Michelle's until after I had seen the movie and posted mine, because I didn't want anything to color anything at all. And in mine, I talked about how there are so many butts in this movie, and then I went back and watched Michelle's, and Michelle talks about how there are so many fucking butts in there are so many butts, Michelle.
And one of the butts becomes a chicken wing. That's like my dream.
Oh my god. I completely forgot about she pulls a goddamn chicken wing out of that rectum looking thing from out of her navel. Like she digs into her own navel and turns it into a weird rectum and pulls a goddamn chicken leg out of it. Uh, I love the simple duality of those two characters because, again, crucial to this whole thing is they're not two characters. As you are one. Like that's crucial to so much of this, because what you get a lot of times is you have almost that give and take, right? Like especially as the Elizabeth version starts to become more frustrated and depressed and eating a lot and snacking and not taking care of herself and not
And
exercising
cooking.
and cooking, and then and then the dichotomy illustrated of then just beating yourself up over those times where you succumb to that weakness and just hating yourself for it and being so cruel and vicious to yourself, and how this all is fed by that system. It's so smart, it's so well written, it's so well made. I feel like unless the last half hour of this movie is just too much for them, like I feel like there's Oscar potential here. This is such a good movie.
Yes. I don't let me okay, try this again. The times when either Sue or Elizabeth wake up and then they essentially chastise the other one, I love that all of that could just be internal monologue, that it is the same way of like you wake up after you're drinking and you're like, why did you
Hmm.
do that? You have so much potential. And then Sue's like, why are you just wasting your time
Yeah.
on the couch? And it is, they are one.
Oh
And
yeah.
I do like the way that that's written, because it's also the
Hmm.
frustration I feel with Elizabeth of like, you are not worthless, why are you just staying in here? And Sue, to some extent at the beginning, kind of feels that, but then it turns more into disgust of like, ugh, this lesser woman is just wasting her way, or wasting away in the place that she lives, and just like waiting to become Sue again. And
Right.
I don't see the benefit for Elizabeth. I think she should have pulled the plug way earlier. I'm just saying, I would be like, I will go back to looking like Demi Moore. I'm fine with that, because I'm not experiencing anything that Sue's experiencing. It's so frustrating, but yet all she cares about is she has to have some value in society, and if this is how she gets it, even if it's miserable for her, she's okay with that trade-off. It's very sad.
Yeah, for sure. We need to, even though we're already at the hour mark, I don't care. This is a fantastic movie. It deserves the conversation. We do need to talk about the body horror. We do need to
Mm-hmm.
talk about that last half hour and even the earlier bits that we get.
The spine,
This,
the infected spine fucked me
oh
up so much
God.
more than anything else.
Yeah, very reminiscent of like the infected uh arm wound from Requiem for a Dream, if you've seen that
Yep.
film.
Yep.
uh,
Oh,
and even just the transformation sequence, or the separation sequence when her spine or her back splits open, the way that whole thing plays out, you can't help but reference immediately Society and Screaming Mad George's effects when you finally see the Eliza Sue monster. Which, side note, by the way, there's a great piece of writing because they make it so clear when they insist that, oh, you can only take the activator once. Of course she's going to take the activator twice. And by the time it came around to her doing it, I didn't realize I had completely forgotten about it. And I was like,
same.
oh, yeah, of course that's what she's going to do. Of
All the other
course it
rules have
is.
been broken.
Right.
Yeah.
But my God, what incredible effects. I love, again, I was talking earlier, you do have all of that cinematic element of so many great visual storytellers. But again, Screaming Mad George's effects from Society, even just the look of the activator being, look, you can't make a glowing green liquid in a horror movie anymore without everybody in the world knowing you're referencing Reanimator, right? Like that's, and interestingly enough, this is a sort of reanimation, right? Like even the geyser of blood being very reminiscent of Carrie, the end of Carrie with Brian De Palma. Look, if you don't know how Carrie ends at this point, I'm sorry, it's not my problem. Uh, the crawling face reminded me in a lot of ways of things I've seen elsewhere as well. Brian Yuzna's From Beyond, or even the Belial character from Basket Case. There's such a clear influence of those things here, and completely unashamed of it. Like these are gore level practical effects, and it was so good.
One more not body horror related thing, but just like a reference to other creators. I am like 95% sure that one of the carpets was deliberately chosen so that it looks like the Shining
Oh yeah, the
carpet.
one
That
in that
very
hallway. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm just like,
yeah.
I love those little influences where it's not going to detract if you don't know it. But if you do, then I kind of want to be like, why is there a reference to The Shining? What does The Shining mean? Because like the body horror stuff is clearly like, oh, an homage to, but like, why did she make a connection to The Shining specifically? Like, what does this hallway symbolize? Like, I really want to dig into that stuff where it's like, okay, there is an influence. Is it because she's going crazy like Jack Nicholson's going crazy? Is she gonna kill a little boy in a maze in the middle of winter? I want to know. um God, I love this movie. I cannot wait to go back and pick it apart.
Yeah, this fascinating creature design, incredible practical effects, really, really well done. Um, Another thing though that like for a minute I was having those same issues you were, right? About how like oh she how does this lady know how to build a secret door in her bathroom wall, and how does she just know? And then I gradually, and weirdly enough, what did it was the big fluffy blue dress at the end, and that's where it just locked in for me. Okay, if we step back far enough and just look at the story as a whole, like this is basic fairy tale structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the beautiful woman who became a crone and wanted to or was getting older and wanted to stay young forever and ultimately ended up being an awful old crone hag, that sort of that idea. And there are certain things then once I see that through all the modern trappings, like little things fall away. It like I think the fact that there are no instructions, it's just these blank cards with these very basic instructions. She has no idea who this is coming from. She goes to this just disgusting, decrepit building in the middle of some gross alley, which clearly a metaphor for drug use, right? And giving in to drug addiction as a coping mechanism for those sorts of things and playing off that. But just that simple idea of how desperate must you be to be willing to just be like, oh, it's this weird drug that somebody on the phone said, oh, you inject it into here. It's just a big card. It just says, take this, then take this, and you just do it. I think it all very much reinforces that kind of idea of desperation and willing to just try anything to maintain your relevance and your own sense of value, especially when your own sense of value has been so poisoned by other people that you don't see yourself any differently than they do anymore. And yeah, the movie is just layered with shit like that, and I love it.
It was very therapeutic because
Yeah,
I felt, I mean, I'm a middle-aged woman, and I have actually, like, I've seriously been fixated on my hands lately of like, these don't look like the youthful hands I remember, because I played a lot of video games in September, so I was using a controller a lot and I was becoming hyper aware of how like my hands feel and how they get sore way quicker than they used to. I could game for days, not sleep, give me all the surge that I need. I'll be fine. And then on top of that, I started college and I've got an algebra course where I'm handwriting my notes, and I've written a lot of notes, and using a pen has been like, I handwrite notes all the time, but not like these long lectures worth of like putting formulas. And I've just been obsessing over like, these hands are older than I remember them being. These are not the hands of a youthful woman. And then I'm like, oh, the substance. I've heard that's good. And I go and I'm like, I am being personally attacked because I thought this woman is gorgeous and flawless despite her age. Like, who cares? Like, especially 61 playing 50. God, I will never. And even she is not good enough. I was very uncomfortable with that concept, and that's what is boosting it potentially to the number one spot for me. Is I am already going through a little bit of like, I never really feel old lately. I have definitely been feeling it. I think also returning to college, I'm surrounded by very young newbies to the world, you know, and so I'm just like, oh God, I'm old and useless, and I may as well climb into a hole and give up. Because plus I'm not going to have children, so I especially will not have any value to the world. You know, like, who cares? I'm a woman who's past her prime, and I've definitely been feeling that way, and this hit a nerve, but then at least it hit a nerve in a way that it hit a nerve, but was also a really, really good movie. So that
Oh yeah,
combination just, thank God it
yeah,
wasn't like a bad movie and it struck
yeah.
that nerve and I just left feeling sad. I think that's why they had to go so extreme at the end. For one, I think that they were thinking about how to end this and they were on drugs and somebody was like, ha ha ha, what if we do this? And everybody laughed because they're like tripping on drugs. And then they're like, no, but really. And they came up with this plan while on like some sort of really good drugs. I don't know anything about drugs. LSD, would that do that? Is that shrooms? What would cause like this kind of amalgamation of body parts? But they're like, oh, let's do that. And then they joked about it. And then they all sobered up and they went, we're actually going to do that now. And then that lady in, well, I saw it in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm a Minnesotan, very important distinction. But that lady sitting in the Fargo, North Dakota theater, she's not going to feel as sad now because she's going to leave and go, ha ha ha, what the fuck was that last half hour? Instead of, it's really sad that Demi Moore died after all of that and that Sue just replaced her. As like there could have been so many sad endings. And I'm really glad that instead they went the what the fuck route because it gave me something to leave and not just like leave with this message of like, no, you're right. It is useless. Give up. You're no longer valuable to society and climb into a hole. Build a secret room in your bathroom. Don't add any lights. Just go there and sleep. Society is done with you. Had some thoughts lately.
Yeah, and there are a couple of things about that ultimate ending that I find interesting, and it is something that I'm going to want to see again to spend some time with this element of it. If you remember back to that final scene while everybody's being soaked in gore, and she's just bleeding all over everything, and it's a complete disaster. Everybody's running around and screaming, but nobody's trying to get out of the room.
Yep.
And I think that's obviously very significant as well. There was a moment at the end there where I thought it was going to end in a way that I felt would have been incredibly bleak, which is because when she first comes out on stage, right, like there's hushed silence as everyone is staring at Monster Elizasu for a while. And I thought for a minute that it was going to be some sort of fantasy thing, and that audience was going to erupt into cheers and applause, the implication being, in their mind, the greatest thing she could possibly do is to completely fucking destroy herself for them. In sort of almost like a dreamlike sequence because there had been a couple of other almost like dreamlike sequences in earlier in the film when they were were switching, and I thought for a minute that's what because they were just so silent before they reacted for a while, and I am to a certain extent glad that it was not something bleak like that. I do appreciate the ending. Again, I do think there is something being said with the fact that all of those people are running around and screaming, but none of them are trying to get out of the room. It's definitely a movie I want to see again. It's going to be difficult to see again because I got to give goddamn 2 hours and 20 minutes to it. And it's so
this is
French.
One that deserves it.
It's
I'm
so
okay
goddamn French. Yeah, no, this is a fabulous film. Fantastic film. And I hope it wins everything it gets a chance to win. It was really, really, really good.
Yeah. I love it.
I don't have anything else much to say about it, Michelle. Do you have much else to say about it?
Margaret Qualley. I did also just see her in Drive Away
Oh,
Girls, and I forgot about that. And she is a very feisty lesbian, and goddamn, I just bisexual panic all around anytime she was
one,
on. And then I also
one.
felt gross because I'm like, the whole thing is that she is hypersexualized, and that's the problem. But I also like that she's hypersexualized, and that sucks. Like that made me.
No,
I was like, oh, I know this is deliberate, but also like I don't want to objectify you. But that is specifically what they're doing. And oh, it makes me feel icky, but also I want to see your butt. So it as a viewer, I felt so conflicted of like, I love that you're doing this and I hate that you have to do this.
Yeah, well, I think to a certain extent that reaction is probably a bit of what they were going for.
Oh,
But
definitely.
one thing I do want to mention that I almost forgot about when you bring up Margaret Qualley again is another thing that I love about this movie is I do find it rather interesting, we will say, that one of the most uh, erotically photographed films I personally have seen in a long time was like the film work, the shots of like the objectifying camera work in this film is so intensely good that it's like it's wild to me that a woman was in charge of this, and it's hilarious that she made an even more perfectly objectifying, like it's an understanding of what men have been doing to women for so long, and it's interesting that she then comes in and not only represents it accurately but also to a certain extent does it even better than they do. I think that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty bleak for a significant part of the movie up to the point of the pump it up dance
Yeah.
session. And then I was like, what a when I was talking to Aaron, our friend Aaron, this is my one reference to a friend. I do have friends. I have to make a reference to a friend every episode just to prove that they are out there. When I was talking to Aaron, he was like, so it sounds like I need to go see this. And I was like, yeah, it's a horniness roller coaster. And I stand by that
It
because I was
is.
like,
Oh my
what?
God.
How do I don't
I
okay. I like
I
this. I
was
hate
happy.
this.
On more than one occasion, I was very happy to be seeing this movie alone as well.
Yeah, I was like, dear God, gorgeous, important message. I
Oh,
feel
for
so
sure.
conflicted about it, but I also feel
Oh,
exactly how I think I'm supposed to.
yep. All right, Michelle, the dog has started to bark, so we should probably wrap this guy up. Do you have any closing thoughts on the substance?
It's probably going to be my favorite movie of the year. We'll see if it gets knocked out by something else, but just from having the opportunity to talk about it, I'm realizing how much I love it and how I cannot wait to see it again at home so I can pause and analyze. So I love this movie. That's all I
All
have to
right,
say.
so do I. It's fantastic. If you got nothing else to say, Michelle, how about say goodnight, Michelle?
Good night, Michelle.
For more horror content, visit WeWatchShutter.com, where you'll find our world-famous, patent-pending Ghoul blog and Squelch files, as well as a schedule of upcoming episodes. Find us on social media at WeWatchShutter on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Twitter if you're still doing that for whatever reason. You can email us. mail@WeWatchShutter.com is the address. mail@WeWatchShutter.com. You can even call and leave us a voicemail, 701-566-9510. No, really. 701-566-9510. Give it a shot, see what happens. We Watch Shutter is a production of Rat Factory Media.